there are two observations we can make that will be universally agreed to. The world is deeply divided. No one knows how to resolve the division, which deepens and hardens over time. Everyone is able to point to problems. No human or human organization has a solution. Perhaps it is true to say we cannot even agree where the division is, there are so many of them. The conventional division is between the political left and right. But there are racial and religious rifts. There is the division between the northern nations and those of the south. Even the U.S. is split geographically, both north and south, and between urban and rural areas. Then of course there is the political and economic divisions and the various global alliances between nations. These divisions are distractions and misrepresent the real problem, which is why addressing these divisions gets us nowhere. The war is between democracy and theocracy, but this does not mean what you think it means. Democracy is a rule of the people, but who rules the people? No one asks this. One might think this question would require reams upon reams of observational studies. But no, it only takes a few lines of irrefutable logic. The first observation is that an independent person does not need the state. Someone who is self-reliant does not need handouts from his neighbors. A community of such people would not have any crime, poverty, or freeloaders. Nor would a nation of people who pay their own way have any need for the state. This is true by definition. If the person or nation was composed of liars, cheats, and criminals, then the state would be needed, and if the state is needed, these low lives would need support from their more industrious neighbors. Help must always flow from good to evil and never in reverse. The state exists to pander to the least able and the least valuable social component. In doing so, it invariably hinders, hurts, and disables to some degree the most vibrant and productive part of society. Everyone votes, but invariably they have to vote for the least able. The vote has to be for the social misfit. Some may attempt to vote for the best and brightest, but the best and brightest pay for what they get and do not need or accept charity. Ultimately, the vote is for the dregs and social misfits, as these are the ones politicians serve. This is not the people. Some voters may attempt to minimize the harm of the state, but regardless, in the end they do vote for the state, and by doing this they vote for what the state represents, and that is the worst of us. There is no way we can reconcile what is happening to what ought to be the case. We cannot reconcile the state and those who are their constituents with their victims. It is a travesty of justice to attempt this. No matter how we talk about the state, it is at best a broker, finding sources of income and financing for those who have no credit. As such, they will never pay back what they get. This is demonic. It is demonic because one ought to never deprive anyone of their value. To do this as a third party makes it worse. Democracy is the rule of demons because the constituency of the state is not those who do not need the state, and it is not those who are being systematically demoralized by the state. Thus, the state only represents the worst of the worst. Because they are inherently freeloaders and cannot be anything but freeloaders, they are demonic. The state is demonic. Democracy is not the rule of the people because there is no one homogeneous group. There are those who are given financing and those who serve as underwriters. These are two incompatible and irreconcilable groups. The state only benefits and represents one part of the two-part system, and that is the demonic free rider. Democracy is the rule of demons. To overcome democracy, this alliance of demons, believers must create a theocracy. The reaction to this varies from outright rejection to a rejection that stops short of total but feels democracy is the solution. There may be a small concession to God by accepting there is a place for personal faith in the home and in a few designated private buildings. No one will go so far as to accept theocracy as a solution to anything. So, let's look at this from another angle. Ought others be forced to ask my permission if they wish to start a business or buy anything substantial? Ought I to be in a position where I get to decide who opens what sort of business? If we use an asset as a currency, we are giving someone this power. We cannot use something available to everyone as a form of currency. We cannot base currency on leaves, or bags of soil or stones. No one would work and no one would want to sell you what they had for a bag of stones or soil. Therefore, currency has to be restricted. Demand must be created for it, and that means there must be limited supplies to keep its value artificially high unless it does have a natural value such as gold has. But if gold is used as a currency, its value is increased by scarcity. Scarcity is established by hoarding gold. Why would anyone spend gold as a currency if they can hoard it and see the value increase? This is an example of what some call letting money work for us. It's a demonic idea. The person with a large volume of gold becomes rich by doing nothing other than depriving his fellow men of what they need. If I pick up trash off the street, this has value. But am I able to be paid for this if gold is the medium of exchange and being hoarded? But even if we are using fiat currency, the question still remains as to who will pay me for picking up trash. If I had this job, then someone would have established a benefit for keeping the streets clean and have the capital needed to hire someone to pick up the trash. We could, as have so many before us, talk for hours on how to get work done and establish the means to pay for it. But the problem is not money but ownership. Someone owes the money we use, and someone owes the street of other location which needs to be kept clean. Hopefully, the state has the money to keep the public areas clean and individuals have the money to maintain the private areas. But there is no guarantee of this. The problem of paying me to pick up trash comes down to the private or public owner having the money to pay someone to clean up trash. But this responsibility of the owner to pay those who work for them creates a level of difficulty or another hurdle that is unjustified. If we need the house painted, why ought it be such a problem to get it painted, assuming there is someone available who wishes to paint a house and acquire an income for doing so? But the problem arises when the house is privately owned. Why ought you to paint my house if I am not able to acquire the funds to pay you? In a theocracy, it is God who owns the assets. The church serves as the owner of record and who keeps the books, which ensures the painter is paid for the work he or she does. The worker adds value to assets and is credited the value of the work done. We work to benefit the church and in so doing benefit the people of faith. Democracy fails because it permits the mob to override the right of those who create the wealth to own what they created. Thus, we need a new model of ownership that does not allow free riding and a new political model that does not give might makes right and the end justifies the means, a voice. God owns the physical world because He created this. We own the value we add to the physical world, because this is what we created. Conservatives need a currency based on equity, or value created, a new model of government that does not give power to free riders and an ownership model that recognizes the rights of those who create wealth. This is a theocracy. Apologia is a biblical theocracy that reconciles Scripture to produce an experiment that demonstrates the validity of the God hypothesis.